Week 6, Day 2 of the European Hearthstone Grandmasters is getting underway. I'm Matt Saberbolt, and I'm joined by Soddle. Soddle's here for his second day as well. And honestly, bud, it was a great day of Hearthstone yesterday. Had some fire memes. I'm looking forward to today. How are you looking forward to today? And how are you doing?
I was not emotionally prepared for this.
As long as you were physically prepared, that's
yeah,
what really
I was.
counts.
I'm always physically prepared for you, Admirable.
That karate chop could have killed a man.
It was a pretty awesome day yesterday. It was a lot of rogue mage, warrior kind of stuff, but the games just all kind of had their own natural twist on them that made them pretty exciting, honestly. There was some absolutely crazy stuff going on in the Ball Control Boston series, some ridiculous like one-out lethals and like the discovered timeout, which was like the only out in the situation. There was some crazy stuff that, you know, it does go hand in hand with the kind of created by meta that we have right now, but they certainly are making a lot of the games a much better viewing experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty cool to see, and also the matches that we had and the importance of them for the standings that were in Division B. You know, that's something that we're really going to be talking about today, as we can take a look at the standings and see what's going on for both sides of the board. We're going to take a look at Division A right now, where Fino stands atop of it. And this isn't quite like Division B, where here it's the top 5 are really the front runners for the rest of this. You know, you look at Thijs, Sport Control, and SilverName, and they're playing the roles of spoilers essentially from here on out.
Yes, and as we progress through the day, you'll see that those top 4 are all actually clashing against each other, so there's a chance for them to separate out even further. But, you know, some losses for those 6-4 players, Viper and Bunny Hopper, can send them down into the pack. But it is definitely a tale of two halves when it comes to Division A. Division B, much more tightly contested all the way down. Of course, Thijs, Ball Control, and SilverName. I want to say 0 chance, especially in the case of Thijs, but it would be very, very difficult for them to find a final spot.
Yeah, it pretty much takes a perfect outcome for
Yes.
you. Like for Thijs to even look like he has a chance, he's going to have to win the rest of his matches, and he's going to have Boar and Bunny Hopper and Viper all lose theirs.
Yes.
That's a very tall order if that's going to make it happen, but it is possible. You know, this is Hearthstone we're talking about, and so many times you're down and out and everything's gone, and then you have that one chance to get the perfect card. So it's possible, but definitely what I'm looking forward to is just seeing some good matches, and then seeing how far Fino can go with this. You know, in his interview he talked about how he wasn't just good enough with making it to playoffs. He wanted the first, and he wanted the first. That was like a thing for him. He wants to win no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see the schedule now. We are going to kick things off with Thijs versus SilverName. Thijs is really the player to come out of left field with his deck choice this week. He is bringing the Nomi Priest, perhaps influenced by the fact that he's playing SilverName, but then moving on, you see RDU versus Pavel. RDU with what we're calling Vancouver Warrior, a more tempo-based version of Bomb Warrior, and he's found the matchup he's looking for, which he did not yesterday. He wants to play Bomb Warrior mirrors with that deck, finds it against Pavel.
Yeah, and taking a look at our featured match with Bunny Hopper versus Calento, and you know, kind of looking forward down the line as well to match number 5 with Fino versus Viper. This is a Seed 1 versus Seed 4, and then Seed 2 versus Seed 3, I believe. And that is like such importance to winning this match and securing that playoff spot for at least 3 of the players. You know, Fino has blasted off to an enormous lead. I'm pretty sure that he's locked. I don't have those numbers officially. I just kind of glanced at it and looked up. Like, it's tough for him to lose out at this point and not have an incredible record. But for the rest of them, these are super important matches that they need to be winning. I think these matches are crucially more important, I think, than even their future matches they'll have coming up.
Yeah, and I think another reason why we can call that our featured match today, Bunny Hopper versus Calento, is that you're looking at 2 of the best pure technical decision makers in the history of Hearthstone. You're like 2 of the best from different eras, I would say. Bunny Hopper perhaps the best right now. Calento definitely had his time where he was king of the mountain as well. And that's honestly one of my favorite things about Grandmasters is like seeing that generation gap come back together in Hearthstone, where it's, you know, the greats of 2016, 2017 now going up against the greats of 2018, 2019, and that real fight for dominance, you know, just gets me excited, Nathan.
I hear 2016. It doesn't feel that long ago until you say 2019, where we are right now.
Yes.
We're also halfway through it.
Ooh, time passes, isn't it weird?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And I got older today. Goodness gracious. Let's take...
No, stop. Everyone,
Oh,
everyone in chat, happy birthday to Nathan. That's Admirable Zamora.
I'm almost Brian Killer's age. That's not necessary. Let's take a look at Thijs' Chef Priest deck and see what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually spoke to Thijs because we saw this deck come up and we're like, okay, it's Nomi Priest, that's a bit weird. We tested the matchups that he is up against and I was not having a good time. I was playing from the Nomi Priest side of things because Admirable just wanted to make me suffer and just wanted to beat me up with bombs the whole time.
You said you'd never played a game of it.
I did not.
I thought you did.
I said no such thing.
Who was it? Somebody said that.
It wasn't me.
Oh.
But regardless, I was not having a good time in the matchups that Thijs is facing against this week. So I messaged him and I said, hey, we have a theory. Did you submit Nomi Priest because you were playing against SilverName, who has been consistently submitting Token Druid for the last few weeks? And he said, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Essentially, you know, I'm lower in the standings now. I have a very limited chance to qualify for finals. So that I felt like that gave me the freedom to just take a bigger risk and just have more fun and just play a more unique deck. Like, felt more comfortable making a harder read in that scenario. That's kind of what he went for, and unfortunately he whiffed because SilverName finally saw the light that Token Druid just wasn't getting the job done.
Look, it's Chef Priest.
Yeah.
How is it not a whiff? Like, we saw Pavel do this.
Yes.
And we saw what. Look, I don't want to say bad.
Okay.
It's like, I need my caster dictionary here real quick. It's like, what's a synonym for bay? Interesting. There we go. It's an interesting deck to bring.
That's the line.
It's a super interesting deck to bring.
I was struggling as well. I haven't cast for a while. I'd forgotten all the lingo as well.
Yeah.
Interesting is definitely what we're supposed to say.
And sort of looking at it, this deck has just consistently failed in almost every tournament metagame that we've had. You look at World Championships, it didn't get up to par. You look at when people have taken risks with it in Grandmasters, it has not come up to par. I get his thinking, but why?
For me, Nomi Priest really kind of disappeared as an entity when Cyclone Mage appeared, because I feel like Cyclone Mage really fills that slot in a lot of the same place of just being able to really do crazy dominant things, draw a bunch of cards, generate huge board states. It's able to do it quicker and more consistently.
Yeah.
The difference is that Nomi Priest, because of the cards like Wild Pyromancer that it has in there, can actually prey on some token decks, which is what Thijs' thinking was, whereas Mage on the converse kind of struggles against that if you're not playing like a full Rabble Bouncer Sea Giant kind of package.
That's what I would play then.
I agree with you, but I'm just reporting right now because I actually spoke to Thijs, so I am reporting what his thinking was. I do not agree with it in any way.
There we go.
I think Nomi Priest is a bad choice to bring to this tournament. A interesting choice to bring to this tournament. But I'm just covering the news. All right, that's all I'm doing.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get you on that point where you gave your actual thoughts on the deck choice itself. Let's go ahead and take a look at SilverName's deck, who he'll be facing off against in his very first match. And this is where Sottle and I began our how does Thijs win question. And we did not find the answer.
No. First off, grab 2 of each animal and head for the hills because SilverName brought a good deck to Grandmasters. Like that's noteworthy in itself. As much as the Nomi Priest has been bought from Thijs, I think it's just as interesting on the converse that SilverName has finally switched away and brought a more conventionally powerful deck in the matter of Bomb Warrior. But yeah, it doesn't take a mad genius to work this one out. Nomi Priest's goal is to empty their deck and push themselves to fatigue and then play a bunch of Chef Nomis. Bomb Warrior shuffles a bunch of bombs into a then empty deck, or a deck that is low on cards when it's progressing towards that point, and you take enormous damage incredibly consistently.
Yeah, or just shuffles them in there generically
and then just waits for you to draw them.
Because you have to draw your deck, you just die anyway. Like, I get the waiting part if you have Elec. If you don't have Elec, figure it out.
Yeah.
You just take your best shot and figure it out at that point. I did see Purple playing Nomi Priest, however, with an Archivist Elysiana in it. And he was playing in top 50 Legend and winning. And what I noticed about it is when he was getting the Chef online, he was then following up a lot of his board being cleared or having a low life total with playing Archivist Elysiana and actually stabilizing from that point. It was very weird. And I think he was kind of joking around, but it was working. And he was in top 50 for, I was watching him for like 2 hours, and he was bouncing between like 35 and 75. in Legend.
Well, looking at the secondary and tertiary decks, there is no Elysiana to come into this deck for Thijs, and I think that's a big talking point as well, because nothing in the secondary or tertiary really helps him get the job done there either. There's not like he's really teched for Warrior in any of those options.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can do that unless Elysiana is a real thing, which I also have my doubts about. You know, purple being in top 50 Legend with a bad deck is not uncommon. You know, like that's kind of his bread and butter at this point.
Yeah. Now, I do want to follow this up with, I think Thijs has an excellent point, where he wants to strut his stuff, he wants to show that he can play from an underdog position, and decided to make a call that was aggressively targeted at SilverName.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like, you know, Thijs is a streamer, Thijs is an entertainer. He's not taking this from the point of like, oh, I don't care anymore, I'll just submit a meme deck. It's just, you know, I'm comfortable in the position that I'm in where I have a very small chance to qualify, to take a risk and try and do something entertaining that also wins.
Yeah. So my hat's off to him for that.
Yeah.
And SilverName's hand is, two of these cards are quite good, but honestly, I feel like that's about all you need for really making some headway on this deck.
2 cards, they're dead. All right, next game.
When I played the matchup versus Sottle, I quite literally did not trade a single minion.
I'll tell you one thing that I was not doing in that matchup, and that was playing a Cleric on turn 1 and then seancing it on turn 2.
Yeah, we definitely didn't do that.
I did not do that.
So I am curious to see how that works out.
Yeah.
Speak to me.
It does seem kind of smart on the surface. It's like, if the weakness is your opponent has time to shuffle bombs in your deck, draw faster.
Right.
The thing I really noticed is that Chef Nomi plus Seance was not getting the job done.
No.
And Grave Harbor with Seance was the main target that we had agreed you should focus on.
It did seem that way, yeah. I don't think I even played a Chef Nomi against you when we tested it against Warrior.
Didn't have time.
Yeah.
I literally forwent actively trading Acolytes in positions where it was likely that Sottle would have Wild Pyromancer and Coin and Power Word Shield and nonsense. And at the end of the day, it just didn't really matter that much.
I'm sorry, Thijs, how is this your hand right now?
Oh yeah, that was another struggle that Sottle had, was for the first 5 or 6 games just drawing Wild Pyromancer in general.
Literally, Pyro was in my bottom 6 cards for the first 4 games we played. That was a bad time.
So we had to play a lot more games, is the
yes.
unfortunate part of that outcome.
Yes, correct. But yeah, I mean, this is obviously an incredibly powerful draw for Thijs in this position. He's just kind of missing a spell to start with. He needs a spell to initially injure so that he can get full value out of his healing. But with 3 potential clerics that he can use here to get this job done, perhaps he doesn't need both of these healing spells to draw.
I must consider.
But you have to say he's also kind of set this scenario up with that turn 1 cleric, turn 2 seance line as well, which has definitely put him in a better position in terms of card draw.
In hindsight, I do kind of like it, because
interesting, right?
Cleric is one of your powerful draw tools. It lets you use some of your clunkier heal cards, which are quite dead in the matchup.
Yeah.
And try to get something done. I think I like the Militia Commander here. I don't know, though. You know that your opponent has a Northshire Cleric in hand, at least.
Now?
Why would they do that? That's an excellent question for SilverName right now.
So you want a Militia Commander this turn, hold the weapon, and then set up potentially a weapon swing for the next turn?
I think I want to get the 2 Alex down with the weapon swing.
Mm-hmm.
The one fear of that, I think, is like if Thijs has the 1 Mass Hysteria, the 2 Alex at the same time are quite poor. Also, playing the Militia Commander and attacking opens you to a Northshire Cleric turn from Thijs, and you know that there's a Northshire Cleric in hand.
That's actually a very good point, yeah. That was one of the things that you reacted to during our testing, where I was just very consistently healing your minions, and everyone was, oh yeah, I forgot you could do that.
Yeah.
Not that it helped me at all.
Well, what would have?
Very little.
Is
Apparently
someone
seancing
injured?
my cleric on turn 2.
Is someone
Going in.
injured?
Yep.
I don't blame him. They say you never go full Northshire, but, you know, I tend to disagree.
It's, okay, that hasn't been relevant for like 4 years, and even then it was only in Priest Mirrors. Like, this is the thing that always comes up. Someone plays 2 Northshire cards, oh, you never go full Northshire. Like, where did this come from? It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Stop saying it. Chat's just a wall of never go for shit now, guaranteed.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of dead draws out of the way, and we're loaded up for Auctioneer next turn. Yeah, the Seance was quite brilliant. Honestly, I think that gives Thijs game where he normally would have had very little.
I agree.
So my perspective has changed on this a bit. I think this was the line to take, and he might get a payoff now. If you go with Regenerate, you overdraw.
He's overdrawing right now.
Is this 10 in hand? Oh, it is.
Yep. So he could have regenerated face. End up killing his own Nausea Clerics, though.
Yeah, I think the goal for him is to make sure the Elec comes off the board.
That's fair.
Because right now, I think SilverName has a pretty high priority of making sure all these die.
And there's only, what, the one Nomi and perhaps the one Seance that are really super relevant at this point. It has both Grave Horrors in hand, both Auctioneers in hand. Feeling good.
I would say that the Chef is the one you don't want to see next, yeah.
Yes. Of course, always the opportunity when you have a full hand against Bomb Warrior that milling a card works in your favor, because you can just throw away a bomb. Defuse a bomb, as we've been calling it.
I got the best deals anywhere.
All right, time to giddy up. Right now, 4 more spells, potentially castable.
Right,
but actually, it'll end up only being 3 because he can get this down to 0 attack and then only use 1 of his Forbidden Words. So he's going to need to chain a couple of additional 0 mana spells here if he wants to make this a Grave Horror turn.
All the bombs drawn out now, too.
Yeah.
That weakens the Blastmaster boom.
It does, and this is perfect scenario. When you are playing Nomi Priest in this matchup, you do want to draw the bombs and then hold on to healing cards so that you can then heal up that damage afterwards and buy yourself a lot of time. Topsy-turvy, he's getting close. If he can find a pretty fortuitous chain here, we could see some Grave Horrors coming down, but no. Not sure if he did have 2 more remaining 0 mana spells to come out.
One Topsy-turvy and 1 Regenerator, correct?
And a Circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could have got there.
I think Thijs might get there this game still, though. Like, him drawing the bombs out was super relevant.
Yeah, really huge.
To shut off the Blastmaster boom. So I do think he has the time to win this game. This is quite unusual. This did not come up in our practice, and largely due to the fact that I think that we had discussed 0 opportunities to Seance and Northshire Cleric.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever actually had the opportunity to consider that, but it's definitely very jarring to see it just come up in Thijs' very first game. Not something that I had considered in the matchup for sure.
There's a circle. Trade circle, drop some Grave Horrors.
Puts him down to 2. Ideally, if he can draw 1 more card here, he can. Topsy-turvy.
So I think 1 more is the maximum you want to draw.
Yeah. Just it
wow.
is. There's 0 point in drawing that last card. It just actively works against you. And no bomb shuffles in hand currently for SilverName.
And his hand, honestly, is just kind of dead.
No brawl, no bombs.
And no armored or shield slam.
Yep. If SilverName didn't have the bombs right now, he'd at least like to have, say, a Brawl and a Ziliax opportunity available to him, because that's something to note for Thijs as well. In this matchup, sometimes you do, if you can, want to hold on to a Silence or another way to deal with, say, a Mega Devastator Ziliax when you get down to your Nomi turn.
Forbidden Words.
Forbidden Words, exactly. Okay, he does have a copy of Forbidden Words in hand. That's fair. The game has progressed so quickly that like SilverName doesn't even have like Omega Devastator Ziliax as an answer though. So like Thijs has to worry about that even less in this scenario.
That was another thing too, is it was taking you a considerable amount of time to get to combo turns by virtue of, missing 1 piece here or there.
Right.
And so when you look at how Thijs has turboed through the deck, I mean, SilverName has just not had a lot of time to draw cards. He's 11 cards in.
Yep.
Thijs is 29 cards in going into 30, and SilverName is dropping a 7-mana 7/7 by itself.
War Golem Ting. I mean,
I want to trade my auctioneer off.
Well, yes, that seems like a thing.
And then you do the big thing.
It's worth saying. I mean, again, I want to shine light on the fact that the Seance turn on turn 2 has really made all this possible. But on top of that, Thijs' deck has essentially been in the perfect order. The order of his deck was Cleric, Cleric, Pyro, Circle, Divine Hymn. That was at the top of his deck. Then the middle of his deck was 2 Auctioneers and all his 0-mana spells. And the last card in his deck was Chef Nomi. That's literally perfect.
Yeah, it is.
But I still feel like it was a losable game if he didn't make the Seance play on 2.
I definitely agree with you. I mean, that drew him 4 extra cards.
Although,
That drew him 4 extra cards.
on reflection, so he ended up using 2 of his clerics to draw, right? In the meantime, he had a 1/3 cleric on board that drew 0 cards until it died. It just pushed a little bit of chip damage. So if he'd have just held that cleric in his hand the whole time, wasn't it just the same thing, but he has an extra copy of Seance?
I think that forcing your opponent to respond is important.
That's fair. All right, that's a good point.
It let him beget the Acolyte, which forced responses from SilverName that he wasn't necessarily comfortable with. Like, one of those clerics ended up just staying there.
It's really interesting. I mean, I'm going to keep coming back to it because it's just a play that I haven't considered a huge amount in the matchup. You know, I'm no Chef Nomi Priest expert by any means.
And Thijs took the opportunity to make the read here. SilverName didn't have anything to do. So I'll force the Brawl out, and once the single copy of Brawl is gone, then I get to play my Chef Nomi.
Yeah.
I don't need the Seance. I want to heal up, make myself safe, present lethal, and then once you Brawl, guess what? Full board reload.
Yeah, he knows he's playing against a 1 Brawl deck, so he can choose which board he wants to use to bait the Brawl. And just doing it this way, because he had so many minions in play already, he didn't get full value out of his Chef Nomi, so he can just do it this way with Grave Horrors, force the Brawl, and then have a full Chef Nomi. Like, it's just a better way of sequencing your 2 options in this position.
Job done.
Has to armor up. It's one of those times where Holy Smite would be great.
What his Seance play does create, though, is now this kind of world where he has to very carefully work out whether these 2 7/6s are enough pressure to definitely secure the game.
I am slamming this Chef Nomi.
Right, because if he plays the Nomi here and then gets Brawled, there are potential worlds, maybe, although because Brawl Omega Devastator isn't an option, it's hard for him to just flat out lose the game from this position.
You have a 7-1 outcome to win, basically.
Yes. I mean, plus any additional minions that SilverName can play alongside his Brawl. But I think it's a pretty intense debate, and it's a debate that's caused because Thijs used his Seance for extra pressure on the previous turn. He now finds himself in this kind of tricky spot where he has to work out what he loses to if he plays the Nomi and what he loses to if he doesn't. I wonder if what he loses to when he doesn't is actually a smaller list, because it would be something into top deck Brawl if you don't play it, right? Because I think you're pretty comfortable that your opponent doesn't have the Brawl. Are you?
I'm comfortable with that.
I have many questions.
You know, my fear is that there's a Ziliax in hand, so Mech plus Ziliax provides enough defense to live for a turn.
Does it?
Yeah, you have. I believe so.
Maybe
I'm wrong?
I like this. So, playing the Divine here means that the Mech plus Ziliax is unlikely to be able to kill one of your 7/8s, at which point you can just Forbidden Words the big Mech and then push through for 14 damage. It should still be lethal.
He's given just SilverName time is all. Like, the instance is panning out, you know, pretty well for SilverName. I would say post the disaster that's happened if Thijs drawing his whole deck so quickly. But SilverName has now had time to get this done. So Thijs now has to commit to Chef Nomi, and all he's done is give SilverName extra time.
Yeah, I didn't consider Dr. Boom Shield Slam as a potential answer for that spot as well.
Even Shield Block Shield Slam would have been enough in that spot. And so Shield Slam and Armor was not the consideration. So I understand disrespecting it, but you have given SilverName an extra draw in this instance.
It's fair. Whoa. Okay, yes, it's still fine.
Yeah, you get the board.
A Mega Devastator Ziliax does not game this spot. Yikes. Yikes.
Oh my gosh.
Thijs may have just signed his own death warrant this game with just that, the sequencing of those last couple of turns.
You cannot give Warriors extra time. You cannot do it.
And I think Thijs knows. I do think that Nomi or no Nomi turn was very close, but I think Thijs made marginally the second best play.
I agree it's marginal. I mean, if SilverName doesn't have Brawl, you end up giving him a 1 in 16 the times that he can live through the initial push.
Yes.
So he has to check the first condition, get through the initial push, and then he has to check the second condition, which is draw Brawl.
Yeah.
Or have Brawl.
I think what happens in that scenario, as Thijs ends up winning the Brawl anyway.
That's game. He's out of stuff.
Yep. But I think what happens in that scenario is Thijs kind of sits and evaluates all the options that he doesn't have lethal through with just the 2 Grave Horrors on board, and he just failed to account for 1 or 2 of them that tipped the scales in the favor of having to play the additional Chef.
SilverName. One big draw will change everything. It's a SilverName, but a golden draw.
Yep. And if you got him, and if you bring a deck as powerful as Bomb Warrior to the tournament, you put yourself in a position where sometimes your deck will just treat you nice and it'll dig you out of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I really have no criticisms with the way that SilverName had played that game. I think he got aggressive early, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. I think he prioritized the Wrench Caliber over the Militia Commander, which obviously staring at a Northshire Cleric you're supposed to do. He then forwent the Militia Commander because it would have left a Northshire Cleric.
An injured minion on the
Yeah, an injured minion for the Northshire Cleric that he knew Thijs had,
right,
which I think is the right play. He risked the Dynomatic, which I think was the right play. I mean, what went wrong there for SilverName was that he didn't have Brawl at the right time, and every step of the way he managed to find a way to survive. Like,
yeah,
if he slams Dr. Boom on that turn 7, he never gets the armor to shield slam.
Right.
Ever.
Agree. I think, going back to that debate that we have had already and will continue to have about, just slamming Boom on 7 or not, having a shield slam in my hand is definitely one of the things that will cause me to hold on to Dr. Boom until I need to activate that shield slam. So I think that was a very smart choice from SilverName. I think that was perhaps one of the options that Thijs failed to consider while he was trying to solve those last few turns. But yeah, you're right. Very little went wrong for SilverName that game in terms of his play. The things that went wrong is just how strong Thijs' draw was and just how few bomb cards he was able to draw himself to keep pressure up. But he was able to overcome the dominance of Thijs' draw by A, being in a very favored matchup to begin with, and B, just taking some very smart lines to dig himself out of it.
And I got to give props to Thijs for the seance on the Northshire Cleric. That, I think, is a brilliant line.
I'm still not sure how much that mattered. I will go back and forth on it, and it's one of those things where I can't really give you a definitive point because it's such a new concept to me that I need time to evaluate it. But hey, there you go.
Well, you're about to have some time.
Yes!
We got to go to a quick break, so I'll let Saddle think about it, and I'll let y'all think about it as well. But we're going to be jumping into game number 2 of this series, where they're going to be looking at their secondary, tertiary decks and see if there's anything they can cook up with that Chef Priest to perhaps make the matchup a little bit better. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Hearthstone Masters. Today, we're going to share one of the biggest changes coming to Hearthstone in 2019, an entirely new competitive format called Specialist. Specialist will be the default competitive format for Hearthstone Masters. From online Masters qualifiers to live Masters Tour events to the pinnacle of competition, Hearthstone Grandmasters. Ready to learn how the new Specialist format works? Let's dive right in. In this new competitive format, players select 3 30-card decks to bring to a Specialist tournament. The catch? All decks must be from the same class. In this regard, Specialist is a major departure from most other competitive formats. Amongst every player's 3 Specialist decks, one is designated as the primary deck. The player's other 2 decks are designated as secondary and tertiary decks. There are no special limitations placed on a player's primary deck aside from regular Hearthstone deck construction rules. However, a player's secondary and tertiary decks must share at least 25 cards in common with their primary deck. In other words, Secondary and tertiary decks must mirror the primary deck with up to 5 cards swapped out. It is important to point out that duplicate cards count when comparing to a primary deck. For example, if you want to include 2 copies of Twilight Drake in your secondary deck, and there are no copies of Twilight Drake in your primary deck, then you must spend 2 swaps to include both cards. Unique or not, if a card isn't in your primary deck, it counts towards the 5 card difference limit. A player's primary deck is important for another reason. Whenever a new match starts, both its players must begin by piloting their primary deck. Only after the first game concludes can you choose to swap into your secondary or tertiary deck. You do not announce which of your decks you will be using in the next game, and you do not have to swap. After every game, this process repeats, allowing players to swap or stay until the match concludes. Importantly, you can swap to any of your decks between games, primary, secondary, or tertiary, including returning to your primary deck if you have previously swapped out of it. And those are all the rules for Specialists, Hearthstone's new official competitive format. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and start brewing your own primary, secondary, and tertiary decks to get a jump start on the new format and innovate like the pros.
Let the battle begin!
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters, and we are getting into our second game of Thijs taking on SilverName. SilverName up a game after one single draw manages to change the landscape, but Thijs gave him the opportunity to draw it with just a tad back of the aggressive play. And by a tad back, I mean not adding 30 additional attack to board, but he has some points on why he did it. Long story short is SilverName's gone over to his tertiary deck, which adds in 2 copies of Sephorium Bomber, a Barista Lynchen, an Azalina Soul Thief, and a Geppetto Joy Buzz.
Yeah, and I love that he's gone this way. This is how we went when we were practicing as well. His secondary deck features Big Game Hunters and an additional copy of Brawl. So I think there would be a bait there to say, hey, if I have 2 Brawls and some Big Game Hunters in my deck, like, he just doesn't have enough threats to beat me. But instead, he's gone the more aggressive option by adding in Sephorium Bombers for extra bombs, and then Barista Lynchen can help him get more bomb activators as well. Geppetto Joy Buzz helps him draw those cards more consistently. Like, this, for me, is a better way to go about beating Nomi Priest. You just blow them up. But if you feel like this is a good plan, unfortunately, it's going to cost you the princely sum of 17,240 dust to put this together. But if you are interested in that, use that QR code right there. I'll get the job done.
Wow, you did everything for me.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm here now, Avram.
Happy birthday, me!
You can just take some time off. I've got it. I've got it covered. It's fine.
All right, well, I'll let you take this one. Go ahead, Sottle.
What's happening?
Well, you're doing the thing.
We're just talking about your birthday now. Can we do that?
I'm so old.
I'm just happy that you're older than me. That makes me happy.
I don't know. Eventually, I'm going to catch Brian Kibler. I don't know how it works because that's not how time and linear things work. But
it is definitely how numbers work, though.
It seems to be for me. I mean, I just feel like I get older at a higher progression than other people.
So here is one point I do want to make based on that game 1 that we just saw before we get started with this. Thanks to our blessed break, I did have some more time to think about it. And like, on reflection, I do want to present the opposite argument to that Seance play that Thijs made.
Okay.
Where he did play an initial Nausea Cleric, which I believe drew 0 cards, citation needed on that one. So eventually could have ended up in the same position by holding the first Cleric of having 2 Clerics in hand for his big explosive card draw turn that he achieved. Then, at the end of the game, he has a second Seance, right? Which essentially solves that game. There is no debate about the position he's in if he has an extra Seance available to him. So I just kind of want to throw that out there as a possibility. Again, I don't know. I need more time to fully evaluate that, but I want to throw that option out.
Yeah, I think my understanding of it is the first Northshire Cleric stuck to board because an Acolyte was killed. Apologies here for the tech issues. We'll get this solved as quickly as possible.
See, I just knew this was going to happen, so I just talked about it.
Yeah, so I believe the first Northshire Cleric stuck to board, and then I believe the third one was downside next to the Auctioneer.
Wait, say that again?
I believe the first Northshire Cleric stuck to board.
Correct, yes.
So he used the second one to draw cards in tandem with the Wild Pyromancer, and then the third Northshire Cleric was alongside the Gadgetzan Auctioneer at some point.
No.
There was a Gadgetzan Auctioneer plus a Northshire Cleric.
Yeah, but it was still one of the the remaining clerics from where he went Cleric, Pyro, and popped off. It was the second and third Cleric that came down.
So what happened to the third Cleric then?
The second and third Cleric were played with the Pyromancer.
The first one died after the Acolyte died.
Did it?
Because he prioritized killing Acolyte. So Thijs goes Northshire Cleric, turn 2 Seance, and then turn 3 plays Acolyte, and SilverName responded with, I think you're right, actually. The first one died.
So he had a Wrench Caliber, and he used his 2 Wrench Caliber charges to kill the things. The Cleric and the Acolyte.
If he doesn't have the Northshire Cleric down, can he use Militia Commander to clear the Acolyte and save the Wrench Caliber then?
Yes, it definitely changes the way the game pans out, and perhaps that means more bomb activations come down later.
And more pressure.
Yeah, but I do just want to open up the world to say where, like, you know, we can say that Seance was, you know, an inspired play early, but it did mean that that created the scenario later on where he didn't have that Seance available. And I think the benefit of that initial Cleric being on board on turn 1 was minimal. Not non-existent, but minimal.
Defend the gates!
All right, you have
new game. We'll come back to it.
I'm not buying the product yet, but
Okay.
I'm picking it up and looking at it.
Okay.
I think the tempo change is significant.
Well, new game, game 2.
Yeah, we're still in the same game. We just lost the spectator feed for a moment, so again, we apologize for that, and thank you for your patience.
And it looks like SilverName has managed to get a great deal more pressure cooking in this game so far. Has C4 bombers are now plural to follow this up alongside this augmented Elec, and this is just another one of the reasons why Priest suffers so much in this matchup, is that it just can't really take care of board objective minions. If there's just a minion on the board that will terrorize you if you let it live, a lot of the time you just have to let it live. At best you can silence it a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at Augmented Elec, and that's a minion that is pretty hotly contested, and decks have a lot of way of doing that. They actively will play to build tempo on board, and then try to answer an Augmented Elec, so that way you cannot shuffle multiple bombs in. And for Priest to contest it, it basically takes your whole turn. So if it's compounded with other minions, that thing just wrecks you.
Right.
Quickly.
He is able to silence if he wants to, and elects not to. And that means 10 future damage is going into the deck.
Ah, future damage. My favorite type of damage.
I was trying to pay homage to TJ and post-Reno damage in some way. And so pre-Reno damage?
What?
Would that be the measure of it?
No.
Because they don't have to Reno yet. Whoa, it's Schrodinger's damage. It's both pre and post Reno by virtue of the draw.
I'm on board with Schrodinger's damage.
Okay, there we go. Is it Schrodinger's? I always thought it was Schrodinger's.
I have no idea.
Okay. I figured you would officially know.
No, I have just always said it that way.
Interesting. The option to play Gatzan Auctioneer and use all your spells here, I think, is tempting. But I think with Coin and with Grave Harbor, you are free to wait here a little bit. You take one shot, and then you try to have a big turn happen so that Grave Harbor gets down alongside your Auctioneer.
Right. I
It's got
found
Coin in hand as well.
in my relatively limited experience with this deck that like turn 7 and turn 8 are often the best turns to go off with your 2 Auctioneers, because your first Auctioneer will gobble up a lot of your 0 mana spells. So then when your second Auctioneer comes down, you want to have 2 mana spells available to you as well, alongside any additional 0 manas that you find. So that means, you know, having 8 mana available to you means you have a much more powerful potential second Auctioneer turn. But against Bombery, you don't really have that luxury. You do have to go quick. So I'd expect we're seeing Auctioneer 6, Auctioneer 7.
Especially if you're going first. Like, if you're going first, you never have coin. So you have to just basically burn your first Auctioneer and try to force your opponent into having weak turns.
Right.
I must choose.
The more I've learned about combo decks in general over the years, in terms of Hearthstone, the more I have learned that, honestly, combo decks just kind of waste their cards.
Yeah?
All of your cards do a minor contribution. They're all a drop in the bucket until you do the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, combo decks generally draw cards incredibly fast. So it turns out that when you get to play a game with 25 to 30 cards in the time that your opponent is only playing with 10, you can afford to be inefficient with your cards because you just have more of them.
There's a lot of arrows flying around the screen and all sorts of animations, and you can see Thijs. He keeps looking at the draw and what's going on. Players are allowed to use Deck Tracker in this event, and so you can see every time he's going to draw a card, a lot of times he's glancing over at the Deck Tracker to see what the draw is in the immediacy so he can make faster decisions.
Oh, the regenerate.
And saving coin here means that he has the auctioneer coin turn next turn.
Yep.
So he gets to, instead of have the turn 7, turn 8, like you just said, he gets to
6-8.
turn that into 6-7.
Yeah, it's exactly the kind of thing I was
Open the
talking about.
gates.
Just a little bit of coin flexibility tied into it.
He is taking a lot of damage, though.
Yeah, he's just getting beaten up this game. This is much more reflective of what we were playing out between Admirable and myself.
But just need some zeros. And that's not a 0. This next one's pretty much got to be a 0.
Yep.
And so if that's the case, do you power word shield instead? And Thijs thinks so. Vulnerable to shield slams if he doesn't find himself another Grave Harbor. And no spells picked up. He's just dead.
Dead on board. Cooked.
Is someone injured?
Overcooked.
Well played.
Timing's got to be perfect.
You have
And while I always commend a risk, SilverName brings a solid deck and picks up a solid win.
Yeah, very solid. I think that first game in particular, he had a lot of decisions that ended up mattering. I think both players in that first game had a lot of decisions that ended up mattering, which was honestly nice to see because it wasn't really what I expected to see going into the matchup. It felt like it was going to be one of those series. It's like, well, you got the 2080 matchup, good luck. But, you know, that first game was actually very, very interesting. I'm sure if we wanted to, we could sit here and keep talking about that one seance play for like another hour before we end up agreeing, because Admirable and I tend to do that on a regular basis. But it was, it's
one of my favorite hobbies.
yeah, mine too. It was a super interesting game of Hearthstone, for sure.
And that to me is combo decks in a nutshell, is where eventually you run into tiny little decisions that have paramount impact. You know, a lot of the virtue of combo decks in pretty much every card game I've ever played is that you become the PvE environment, where you are now the environment and your opponent is the player. They just have to simply try and overcome what you are doing. And that role is also somewhat reversed, where as the combo player, you are solely operating against somebody who is just doing the thing that they always do. End of story. And it's a race against time in that spot. It's a very different kind of matchup, and sometimes it's quite creative and interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Other times it's not necessarily. Like, you think back to the Gadget Zane Auctioneer Rogue days, where it was insanely dominant. It had interaction with your opponent, and what the interaction was, you never got another minion in play. By the way, I drew my whole deck, eat
Right.
3 Leroys to face.
Right.
There's some sort of balance there. I don't know exactly what it is. Honestly, I was a fan of the Malagos Druid era. I think Ultimate Infestation was a little bit over the top. Despite how much I love that card.
Sorry, was that translated from your Caster Thesaurus again?
Hang on, let me check
I
and make
believe
sure.
completely and utterly busted is the word you were looking for.
Oh, that is the original translation.
Yeah, okay, fine.
I thought you said you weren't a, what's the word when you know all the words? Who are those people?
That's such a great question. What's the word
Etymologist.
when you know all the word? Oh, etymologist.
Yeah.
Okay. Lexicographer would actually be a better word.
Lexicographer?
Yes.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Because etymology is to do with origins of words, whereas I believe lexicography is meanings of words, or perhaps histories of words as well. I'm not sure. Citation needed. Tweet me. I'm curious.